Hey guys, this week we're going to be talking about 12 hacks that you need to know when you're moving to Cape Coral, Florida. And we're not going to be talking all about hurricanes and insurances and taxes and all that stuff. There's a lot more stuff that goes on in Cape Coral than that. But where we are going to start is with the Cape Coral traffic patterns and noise. And we're going to start with the canals. Because canals, as you know, we've talked about this before, they're not all created equal. The distance up and down these things, the bridge heights, um, even the flood zones. The closer you are to a canal and the closer you are to the coastline, chances are the flood insurance is a little higher. So we're going to be talking about all this stuff. And this view behind me, I did this one night at one of my son's football games. I just wanted to put this up here because there's something very important we're going to talk about with the exposure of your home that's going to affect this. So if that's something you're interested in, hang tight, we'll get to it. But we're going to get rolling on this so that we don't keep you here too long. Okay, so those canals that we're talking about, one of the things you have to consider is, are you going to be on a busy canal? Do you want to be on a busy canal? Because what that means to you is additional boat traffic, additional noise, because some of these boats are not quiet. Some of them do have bigger engines and they can get loud. Also, there are a lot of people that don't respect the speed zones. And when you don't respect the speed zone, you get a bigger wake. The bigger wake can push your boat into the dock more so if you don't have it up on the lift. It can also damage the seawall, damage the dock. So there's a lot of things to take into consideration. The more traffic, the more wear and tear that's going to happen on these things. Now, it doesn't mean it's going to happen next week, next month, next year, but it's just going to happen faster than it would with a canal that wouldn't have that much traffic. The other thing that comes with a lot of traffic is litter. Unfortunately, people are people are people, right? You may find that you have additional things in the canal you have to fish out from time to time, but that's just one of the side things you deal with. And the other thing, since you're on a canal and we're talking about noise with boats, also consider how close the canal is to a road. Road noise travels up and down canals same way as the boat noise does, same way as the partiers down the way. So if you have a lot of short-term Airbnbs and stuff, you know what I'm talking about. It can get noisy, weekend parties, things like that. But that's all stuff that you have to consider. And that's before we even get into bridge height clearances. We're going to get to that in just a minute, so hang tight for that. Also, when you're checking this and wondering about the boat traffic, check it at different times of the week because a weekday is going to be much slower and much quieter than a weekend, especially if it's a holiday weekend. But anyway, those are things to consider if the canal is definitely what you want to do, and if that's definitely where you want to live. Next thing is the storm surge zones and evacuation routes. This is very important because there are certain areas that the police will actually drive through the neighborhood and tell everybody, okay, it's time for you guys to get out of here. This is a mandatory evacuation zone. Mandatory evacuation zone, yes, they want you to leave. They're going to implore you to leave in many cases, but you still don't have to because I don't. They drove through my neighborhood for Ian and I stayed. Now, I'm not in an area with tidal zone changes. So if you're in a neighborhood with Gulf access canals, you need to pay special attention to this because you are affected by the tidal changes. That's what's important when we talk about a hurricane and the storm surge. It's not going to affect freshwater canals. It's going to do the tidal ones, so all the salt water. So if you are on a saltwater canal or nearby one, pay attention to those evacuation zones. You very well may want to take advantage of that because you're going to be more susceptible to flooding. Now, with that, we also have to map out what these routes look like. There aren't many routes coming in and out right now. And there's a stretch of about 5.7 miles on Burnt Store Road that's getting a lot of attention right now because we've had, unfortunately, a few fatalities because it's one lane in each direction for those 5.7 miles. The rest of it has already been changed, 2 lanes on each side with a massive median in the middle. That's going to cut down on accidents. And that's why now we are starting to implore the city to say, guys, we need to make this change now before anybody else gets hurt. So look for that to be happening soon. That's one of the main evacuation zones that we have. But here's the biggest problem because we're so far south in Florida. If you've ever driven from South Florida to North Florida, you know it takes a while. You're into it for a good 5.5 hours, and I drive fast. So I know what I'm talking about. 5 hours is still 5 hours. And when you're dealing with a bunch of people evacuating, it's not going to get easy. I-75, US 41, they're all going to be jammed. 17, 29, any route that you think you're going to snake your way through, so is everybody else. So either get a head start, get to the airport and fly out, or batten down the hatches and stay put. Now, number three is the hidden bridge clearances. Yes, we say hidden bridge clearances because they're really not posted anywhere. And this one bridge that I've shown you a few times, I literally hung over this with a tape measure and I got 7.5 feet out of it. So this could be a tidal thing again, but remember, this is an hour and 20 minutes up the canal system. So tidal changes aren't going to be affected quite as much in this area. But the reason why this is being brought up again is that truly bridge clearance makes a huge difference. And if you have to, take a tape measure and measure the sucker. I'll even go with a laser and try to do it that way. There's multiple ways to do this without crashing your boat, but you have to know the bridge clearance if you're going to live with it. And again, there's no place that really displays it. We've got a couple maps. I've shown you the maps a couple times. If it's something you want, comment down below map, and I'll go ahead and shoot it to you. You're going to also have to tell me where to send it. Give me an email address, a number to text it to, whatever it is, but I have to get that map to you somehow or another, or just shoot me a message and we'll do that off to the side and be happy to help you out with that. Anyway, the other thing that's suggested about these bridge height clearances, once we figure out how high the bridge is, and again, most of them are 8.5 to 9 feet. There are some other that are a little bit bigger, some a little bit smaller, but those are things that you kind of work out as you go. But the other thing we have to do is get you on the map, like I showed you before, that we can map out how long it's going to take you to get out. Because I'm going to tell you from now, the longer that you are susceptible to this 5 mile an hour slow zone stuff, it's literally going to wear on you. It is a very slow go, and I've recommended to many clients, if you're going to come here and stay for a week or two, rent a boat. Go up and down the canals at 5 miles an hour or at slow zone. See what that feels like. Because then you're going to really know what you can tolerate and what you can't. Because we say in our mind, that, oh yeah, I could do that, until you do it. I'm telling you, please take this step. Go through the process and make sure that you understand what you're getting into. Rear exposure of the home. Remember this? Remember we talked about this? You're going to get this if you have a western exposure. That is a beautiful sunset, and we have them here all the time. This is a norm here in Florida. Summer times after a storm can be absolutely astonishing. This night, it poured like crazy, but look how it ended up. Absolutely gorgeous. But this is what you're going to get if you have a west-facing house. Now, when I say west-facing, we're talking about the rear of the home. Whenever somebody talks about exposure, we only talk about the rear of the home because that's where your pool and your dock and all that stuff is going to be if you have those things. The reason why this is important is because there's this thought process that if I have a pool that's south-facing, I get the sun all day long. I get the most pool exposure or the most sun exposure, so I'll get the most use out of the pool all day long. Okay, I agree with that. That makes sense. Make sure you have a screen over top of it, a bird cage. If you don't, there is a UV factor in that screen that keeps the pool from getting too warm, keeps you from getting roasted. If you don't have it, that pool is going to be very hot. Ask me how I know. Ha! Yes, my neighbor Jason. He has a pool in the back. Didn't want a cage on it. It's wide open. It's beautiful. Looks amazing. He had to put a chiller on his pool. Oh yeah, they make a chiller too. It's not just a heater, but there's also a chiller because of Florida. Yes, so you use this unit. He was taking it from 94 degrees back down into the high 80s, maybe mid 80s with this chiller. But it's the only way to do it because the sun is beating on it. And his exposure is southwest. So again, he's getting hammered with two of the very strong directions that you would face. Now, if you're north, you'd think that, hey, I'm not going to get any sun because it's just the opposite of what you said is good. Not true. If the pool's positioned properly, then the home, being a one-story, still isn't going to get in the way enough to affect the pool. At least half of the pool will still have sun throughout the majority of the day. So it's going to help keep it a little warmer, give you a place to lay out and be in the sun. And while you're not going to necessarily tan, it does feel really good to be in the sun, doesn't it? And I'm sure you still get some of the vitamin D through that process. But exposure, that's why it's so important. So if you have eastern exposure, just keep in mind, you'll have sun in the morning, you're going to lose it for the evening and the afternoon. So if that's something that's really big for you and being in the pool area, east probably isn't for you. North may be the second one that could affect you because your covered area, for the most part, is going to stay shaded all day. But then west and south, those are the two that are going to give you the most sun. It's just how much sun do you want? And if you're full west facing, remember, the sun gets really hot in the summertime, so either have pull down shades, they make them on remotes now, you can roll those down, or tint your windows. There's a number of ways to combat the heat back there. But if you have a pool, you're probably in the pool anyway, or you've got fans going, so probably not a big deal, but something to keep in mind. Okay, so that is what you need to know about the exposure in the back. What we're also going to talk about, what else in the back is seawall and dock, right? We've talked about this before, but some of the things you have to look for when a seawall is damaged, it's rather obvious. If it's the cap on the seawall, it's going to be cracked, maybe slight elevation from another piece. It's definitely going to look aged. If the wall itself is broken or in need of repair, many times it'll like slant away from the dirt, away from the land. So it's going to bow to the opposite direction. Usually the bottom kicks out first. This isn't a norm. It doesn't happen a lot or all the time, but storms do affect this. Also, iguanas affect this. So if you see them digging around your seawall, I'd get somebody out there to take care of that problem right away because they will mess up the whole infrastructure of the seawall by digging that dirt away. It weakens it and it can end up causing that to fail. So those are all things we can get a marine contractor in there to help you figure out what you need in these cases. But an inspection of the seawall at the very least, and if the home inspector thinks you need a marine contractor to look further, do it. It'll be worth a few $100s to find out for sure what that is, because a seawall right now in most cases is going to run you between 40 and 80,000 depending on how much seawall you have property wise. So our lots here are generally 80 by 125, so you have at least 80 feet of seawall in the back. That could get expensive. Number 6 is flood zones, wind mitigation, and insurance. Okay, again, we're not going to talk about this for very long. We already know what floods are about. The closer you to the entrance to a canal, the more chance that you're going to flood. There are flood maps out there that kind of lay this out for us. They will put you in a zone, either AE, which is certainly flood, X500, which means you might flood once in 500 years, and then an X zone. X zone means you're completely out of it. Our floor level elevation should be over 9 feet. I think 9.5 is actually the new number now. So if you're building a home, talk to the builder, find out what that elevation is going to be, because it's going to help you when it comes time for flood insurance. Now, wind mitigation is completely different. This is all about the windstorm part. So your flood insurance is over here, the wind is over here, and that's under hazard as well. So the wind part, they're looking for hip roof versus gable. We've talked about this. You know that gable's not the good thing. So if it's a teepee looking thing, that means the wind can get under there and push it off. So they want flat roof lines. That's hip style. If you have any more than 10% of the gables, you're not going to get full credits for your insurance. So you definitely want to make sure that that's part of it. Age of roof, material on the roof, all this stuff is in this wind mitigation report. So they're going to take all of this to assess what kind of insurance you should have for wind. And if you've got the third nail on your straps and your nail pattern is done properly or done within the year that says it was probably the 6-inch pattern, if it's got clips and everything that it needs, then you're probably going to get the most credits. But all these things will go into evaluating what your insurance is going to look like. Utility assessments and irrigation fees. Okay, we know all about assessments, right? Assessments are going to be hitting most of the Northwest, some of the Northeast, Southwest, and Southeast are done. So don't have to worry about those. There might still be a balance on the property. We can look that up for you. There's a way that we do this. Find out if there's any balance. If there is, we'll negotiate it out, or at least you'll know what kind of extra fees that you're going to have to pay to finish off the process. This also feeds into why homes in the Southwest and Southeast might be elevated in price compared to the Northeast and Northwest. So don't think that you can just go down south and negotiate a price like the Northwest because they're the same size home. They're very similar to each other. The commute to get out is similar, yes, but one area has its assessments already in and done. And it's not just the expense. It is a dirty, messy, nasty process. And if it's something that doesn't bother you, then fine, maybe it's not a big deal. But most people don't want to deal with that. And the added expense is it's just one more thing to smack you in the face, right? So we're trying to avoid that wherever we can. Now, when we talk about the assessments in this regard, we can look this up. Again, there's a place that we can find out what the balance is left and all that. The other thing, there's another location that tells us what you're paying for irrigation water. Yes, irrigation water comes in separate from the regular water in the home. So there's potable and non-potable. And this one will have a purplish colored pipe, so you'll know which one it is. All right, number 8, lawn care. with the local climate in mind. Now, what they mean by this is that we have very, very rainy summers, okay? And what they've asked us to do is not use fertilizer with nitrogen in it during the months of June through November, because all the extra rain we get washes it into the canals, and then it helps to bloom this blue-green algae and all the other crap that gets in these canals. So if you want a nice canal, don't have a bunch of stuff being blown in there or washed in there like these fertilizers. So keep that in mind. No fertilizer June through November. The other interesting thing that happens around here, and I was on the phone, I forget what client I was talking to the other day, but we were discussing the rainfall and the grass, because the grass now is starting to turn brown. We're only at the end of October, but it's been dry for 2 or 3 weeks already. So we're going to be heading into another drought-filled winter, which means we're probably going to get cut back on our sprinklers again. The Northeast still hasn't been fixed, and that's where the aquifer almost went dry, or did go dry for some people last year. So all that's trying to be fixed. But the reason why I bring that up is you won't be able to water as much, so your lawn will turn brown. You can go out and hand water. There's a box right to the front of your home where the water comes in. You'll have, again, irrigation water and drinkable water. Just connect to the purple one. Go ahead, turn it on. You can spray all over your lawn if you want to. That'll keep the cost down too, because it's only $10.50 a month no matter what. You can use as much as you want. Let's temper that. Let's not use as much as you want, because if we're going to go through a drought, we don't want to take it from the other people. But this is just a tip to give you a way to keep your grass maybe a little bit greener when it's going to be dying off. The grass will go dormant in the winter time, so that's why there's not so much growth. Your landscaper will only come by maybe twice a month to cut. It's every other week in the wintertime, once a week at least during the summertime because of all the rain. So they're going to bill you equally every single month. It just spreads out over the 12 months and it equals out for them. So 4 cuts or 2 cuts, that's what it is from the landscapers. Local school and bus route familiarity. This is one of my big pet peeves. You know this. We've talked about this. The car lines are obnoxious. And with the number of schools here, that's a lot of freaking parents that aren't at work. I'd like to think that maybe they're all that well off, or maybe they're remote workers or whatever it is, or maybe one parent works, one doesn't. It's crazy because the number of people, there's got to be hundreds of people in these car lines at any one time with all the schools around here. And I used to have to sit in one. My son is now of age to drive, which is a whole nother nerve-wracking thing. And we're not even going to get into auto insurance right now, but that's something we'll talk about in the future, because I think you're going to want to know about that. But with these car lines and schools, pay attention to how close they are to where you're going to live, because those car lines are going to run from September through about beginning of May. So you're going to get a couple months of reprieve. Otherwise, you have to see how that traffic flows around your neighborhood, because it could get in the way of where you want to go. Thankfully, my community or my neighborhood subdivision, I have numerous ways in and out to avoid that. But there's still times it's frustrating because you get buses coming through the neighborhood and people trying to avoid the stop signs and all the people that line up there. So they cut through the neighborhood. It happens not as often as it sounds like, but it's enough to be annoying. So pay attention to these schools, pay attention to the noise, any of that kind of stuff that may be a problem for you, so that you don't end up wanting to change homes within the first year or two of moving here because of this. Number 10 is vacation and rental rules and neighborhood expectations. Okay, they've tried to regulate this as much as they possibly can. There's now a fee to rent out a home. It's like a $35 fee. They're talking about increasing it though, just so you know. But they want to register every single rental in the community or in the city, so that if there's ever any problems at that address, they'll know who the owner is and how to contact them. Because obviously you have a lot of short-term renters that come in and they want to treat it like a party. Spring break, hey, woohoo! And they can get out of hand. So they have to call somebody, and it's usually going to be the owner. And it's going to be up to you to have to fix that problem. What a lot of people don't think about is some of these HOAs restrict how many times you can do these rentals. And I know one in particular, it's nearby me, there's only 2 rentals for the year and 30-day minimums. So you're not going to get a whole lot of short-term renting out of that. You're probably going to have to annual rent. Now, there's a great disparity between the price you get from short-term to long-term. I'm talking at least double, if not more. So I understand the allure. I understand the attraction to want to do that. but you can't do it in a lot of places. Cape Coral's super popular for the Airbnb and Verbos because we don't have an HOA for most of the city. It's only the gated communities that really give you a problem. There will be some subdivisions that are deed restricted. They may have some rules against it. So this is where we do our due diligence. It's not just an inspection period. It's a due diligence period. We have to check all this stuff out so that you don't get hammered later. The other thing to keep in mind, if you're entertaining a short-term rental for yourself to rent out to other people, we are putting in more and more apartment buildings locally. And there are a lot of other properties that are being put up for rent. Competition's getting a little more difficult, and prices aren't quite what they were at one time because there are more people coming in and doing this. With rents falling and Airbnbs increasing, you can kind of see the problem, right? Now those rents are going to have to come down. You're not making as big of an ROI, so does it make as much sense? We can run the numbers and show you what we're talking about, but we're doing this right now for a client just to try to give some idea of what is the best route to go. And the numbers aren't supporting a killing on this. So keep that in mind. If you truly want this kind of investment, we got to sit down and talk further, okay? These are really cool tips. Hang in here. We're almost done. But number 11 and number 12 are very, very specific to our area. Number 11 is best times to shop and access to services. This is huge for season. If you are somebody that thinks you're going to keep your regular schedule of dinner time and lunchtime and all that stuff that you've had, throughout the summer, forget about it. Redo your plans. There are so many more people here. If you wait to go to dinner at 5 o'clock, 5:30, 6 o'clock, you're going to be waiting hour and a half on average, no matter where you go. That's even Outback. It's ridiculous. So you either going to order out food, or you're going to cook at home, or you're going to pick a new time. Be an early bird. Go at 4:30. Or be a late bird. Go at 9:30. And again, I know it doesn't sound perfect. And we do have a lot of restaurants here, so it's not that. There's just a lot of people here. And when you come on vacation, and I don't care if they're here for 2 months, they don't want to cook. They want somebody else to do it for them. They want it easy. They're going to have cocktails and stuff back by their pool, and then they're going to probably jump in an Uber and go to dinner. That's what they do. That's what this area is all about. So keep those times in mind. Also, the same thing for traffic. If you don't want to be stuck in traffic in the morning, don't get in with all the rush hour folks trying to get to work. They'd appreciate it, and I'm sure you'll appreciate it too. Take a little longer with your coffee in the morning on the sun deck and just absorb the atmosphere. And that's another point. If you want to buy a golf access property, when you come here to rent, get a golf access property. Feel what it's like to live on it, whether it's the noise coming up down the canals, whether it's the exposure, and do I want that much sun or not? Those are things you can only find out by living in the situation. So rent an Airbnb or Vrbo for the time you're here to make sure that that's the kind of home you want. Local outdoor activity timing. Okay, this is only important because of the extreme heat that comes from the sun and also the storms in the summertime. Wintertime, we don't even need to worry about this. There's nothing to worry about in the wintertime. There's no humidity. Yes, you can still get burned, so you want to have some kind of cover up or be around some shade. Bugs aren't really a problem either because the cooler weather. There's usually little breezes that are going, so that's also keeping the bugs away. But a couple of things you want to pay attention to. You will need sunscreen. You will need bug spray and things like that if you're outside and you're not doing it in the early hours. Early hours is where you keep yourself from getting singed by the sun. I know when I go for a walk, I usually put on long sleeves. It even has a hood on it, and I try to walk this path that has a bunch of tree coverage. So if I hit it at the right time of day, I don't really even need the long sleeves. It's just for the time to get to that spot. But that's the best I can do to protect myself, knowing the sun is going to be an issue. Now, storms? There's no way around these things. If you hear the alarm, and I don't care how many of you said you've never heard of a lightning alarm before, or you've never heard one when you've been here, that's because you're coming at time of year where there is none. If you come in the summertime and you just pay the smallest amount of attention and you're anywhere near a park, golf course, school, any place that would have a population of people hanging out, there is going to be a lightning alarm. It will sound whenever lightning is within 10 miles of the location. It will not clear. So there's two different ways it goes. There's a horn to say it's coming, and there's a horn to say it's done. That's the only way you're going to know this. And I mean, if you pay attention, you can kind of hear it. Put a weather app up. It'll tell you when your last lightning strike was. Weather Bug is the one I use. And when you're in there, it will say last lightning strike, 9.5 miles. Okay, well, I know that it's either getting further away or it's getting closer. But I also know that I can't do certain things at that time. I'm not going to go out on the boat because there's no protection out there. I'm not going to go splash around in the pool because, again, there's no protection there. I'm not going to go swing a golf club. A nice piece of metal in my hands with lightning, not doing that either. That's why these lightning alarms came up. So pay attention to those alarms so that you don't become a casualty. All right, so these are some of the 12 hacks that you need to know if you're thinking about moving to the Cape Coral area. If you didn't get enough out of this video, check out one of these other videos. And if you need more after that, do what everyone else is doing. Call, text, email, because I've got your back when moving to the Gulf Coast.